Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Otonabee-South Monaghan Township's Council meeting on a snowy March 7th. I will call the meeting to order. What I would like from council is their approval to adjust the order of the agenda somewhat. I would like to move 2 and 3, which is the land recognition announcements, to after we come out of closed session. So in other words, we will just simply move now. I will ask for any disclosure of pecuniary interest. We will move into close and do the rest of it when we come back out of closed. Heather, do you want a motion from council to approve the adjustment of the agenda? Can I get a motion, please, from council to authorize that? See Councillor Howie and Councillor Allen. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, number 4. Is there any disclosures of pecuniary interest with any of the matters that are before us tonight? Seeing none. Deputy Mayor, you had a question? Can't hear you, Bonnie.
I'd like to do an addition to the agenda. Will we do that after close, Mayor?
Yes,
Taylor?
as we come out of close, then we'll follow the agenda as we usually would, and additions or deletions will be part of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to move right now into closed session. Can I get a motion, please? We move into closed session under section C25-239-2, solicitor client privileged information. Councillor Powers, the deputy mayor clerk. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are now in closed session. Okay, I'll just give the clerk a moment to get back to our regular meeting. And we will wait until 6 o'clock to have a motion to resume our open council meeting and carry on. So we've got 1 minute. Okay, council, we will resume our regular meeting. Can I get a motion, please, that we rise in open session with nothing to report? Councillor Allen, Councillor Howie, all in favor? That's carried. Good evening, everyone. We'll resume our regular council meeting and go back to the agenda in its order. First, I would ask Councillor Ken Howie to recite our land recognition.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. OSAM land recognition. We would like to begin by acknowledging the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan is located on the traditional territory of the Michi-Sagi peoples. These are Treaty 20 and Williams Treaty lands. We encourage everybody to educate themselves on the details of these documents and influence of the First Nations in Canada's history. The Council of Otonabee-South Monaghan recognizes these contributions and commit to actions which demonstrate respect for the environment and keeping with the First Nations tradition reflects on security of the next 7 generations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howie. Sort of FYI for the new members of the meeting tonight, the participants, our land recognition is read by each council member in sequence. So we all have the opportunity and the privilege to recite it once every 5 meetings. Announcements from the mayor. Primarily public works announcements, and I see your director of public works is on the screen. Half loads are in effect, which is quite standard for this time of year and not hard to understand given the weather conditions that we've had over the last couple of days. And those weather conditions relate to my next little bit of information. Portions of 4 roads in our townships are currently closed due to flooding. That could easily get worse before it gets better, but we would encourage our residents to monitor those situations on our website. We'll keep them updated and let the public know which portions of roads are currently closed. Moving down now to additions or deletions from the agenda. Has anybody got anything to add or subtract? Deputy Mayor Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to do an addition, and that is recognition of the International Women's Day. So I have a motion under other matters when it comes to that, Mayor Taylor.
Very good. And I would like to add, as an addition to this deletion, I would like to add a moment of silence for the residents of Ukraine and what's going on over in that country. So provided council agree with that, I'd like a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as amended. Deputy Clerk, Councillor Powers. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, I'd like all of council and the participants, please, to join me now in a moment of silence in recognition of the atrocities that are going on over in Ukraine. It's difficult for me to believe that in the year 2022, this can actually be happening in our world, but it is very real and it is happening. Those people deserve our support, they deserve our thoughts, and I'd like to recognize them with a moment of silence, please. They are certainly, as I say, in our thoughts and our prayers, and we wish them Godspeed to get this situation resolved. Moment of silence. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move down to a notice of motion that is there from Deputy Clerk. Now, the procedure is that Deputy Mayor will read her notice of motion. It will be not discussed, debated, or decided tonight. We will do that at a subsequent meeting. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor to read the notice of motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. That OSM staff review our telecommunication bylaw with the intent to address the requirement that a commitment is required for dedication on the tower for other communication providers in accordance with the CRTC regulations, as well as the township reserves the right to decline the installation of a tower where the builder or site owner has no guarantee of a tenant on the tower. This report I would ask to come back to council to consider no later than May 2022.
Okay, thank you. So that's a notice of motion, council, that we will be, we can deal, if you're ready with it, we can deal with it at our next meeting. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moving down now, we've got number 9 in the agenda was the adoption of the minutes. We have 2 council minutes. The regular public and regular meetings of February the 7th and the special council meeting of February the 10th. Motion, please, to adopt those minutes would be in order. Councillor Powers and Councillor Howie, any questions on them? Any clarification sought? Any concerns with the minutes? Seeing none, motion, please, to adopt them. That is, hands high, please. Motion to adopt the minutes. That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving down now to number 11, delegations. And I thought I saw Brad Smith's name on the screen earlier, but I don't see it now. There it is. Hello, Brad. Good evening, and thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much for having me, Mayor Taylor and members of council. I'm Brad Smith, speaking on behalf of Aon Inc. I'd like to speak to you regarding council's response to the City of Peterborough's official plan and Otonabee Township and the importance of council's involvement in local planning policies. I'd like to thank council for their submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the official plan adopted by the City of Peterborough. It's important for you to be continually involved, as the consequences to Otonabee Township could have long-term effects, from the lack of consultation regarding the last-minute change from residential lands to employment lands, traffic and road concerns, loss of financial compensation, and the loss of employment land developments in your township. Just so you know, Aon has also filed a 400-page submission to the ministry, and it's important for both of us to continually follow up with the ministry and local MPP Dave Smith to ensure both our concerns are heard and addressed. I would like to share with you a couple of instances where it was important for council to maintain their own local official plan. This allows you to keep your local planning policies at a local level to ensure local issues are addressed at a local level. For example, in Havelock, Belmont, Bethune, they wanted a long-term care home. So they approached Aon, and one of the important factors is having a zoned and approved site. So they were able to carry out their own official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. They were going to repurpose some of their lagoon lands. And then somebody came forward and donated them a large tract of land. So they were able to re-gear themselves and then do an additional official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment in a timely fashion, which allowed them to deal with the reports, and they were able to call special council meetings to make sure it was heard, to then give the county time to deal with the request and not have to wait for an additional rotation of county council. This was a local need there with a local priority, which allowed Havelock to deal with this locally as they maintained their own official plan. Another example is with the City of Peterborough's adoption of their official plan. As Aon contacted the county planning department to see if they were going to make a submission to the ministry, but they advised that they attended all the TAC meetings throughout the process, so they felt that there was enough consultation and that they had no objection. But it didn't address some of the traffic issues that were being moved to the local townships. The change from the residential to employment lands was done. The change was made, and then the plan was adopted within 3-month time frame. There was an offer from Cavan Monaghan to deal with employment lands that the City of Peterborough didn't deal with. But as nothing was brought forward to the county level, therefore the county didn't make a submission to the ministry. We feel it's important for local council to maintain local approvals to allow local officials to deal with local issues at the time. So currently, if council were to carry out their own official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment, they're usually approved or denied at your level, and then normally they're just endorsed by the county. Under a new concept is if you join your official plans, you may be restricted to blanket policies and lose control of dealing with local issues in a timely fashion. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have dealing with both these matters.
Thank you very much, Brad. And later in the agenda, there is a staff report from our CAO on correspondence to the city with concerns about the official plan process and the details of that official plan in particular as they relate to Otonabee-South Monaghan. And I know that our CAO has been communicating with you and your office directly as we have sort of a combined and coordinated message from that. So thank you. I'll turn it over to questions from members of council. I see Deputy Mayor Clark. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor to Brad Smith. So Brad, I know that we did have an agreement with the city regarding this, and our CAO has tried to reach out to the city and just doesn't seem to get any response back. If maybe this is for our CAO, this has not been dropped by OSM, and we will continue this fight. Is that not true, Greg?
Mr. Mayor, through the Deputy Mayor, yes, and that's what Mr. Smith has referred to, is that going back to the beginning of October, when we found out that this was a matter that was going for the statutory public meeting at the end of October, we did a quick and sort of hurry up offense in order to get our submission into the city. And so Mr. Smith was quite helpful, and to as far as providing us with some advice and as well some guidance about the challenges that were going to happen with the Cold Springs planning area. And so we were able to to make our submission. So as Mr. Smith has indicated, he's they're working towards this particular matter with the ministry, and OSM is working together. We need to have a conversation with the city related to this matter. And I just want to be cautious, because I want to make sure that we're not, putting, a member of our council in jeopardy here by talking about a matter of this particular aspect.
Point taken, and thank you. If I could just have a follow-up, Mayor Taylor.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, so therefore, in regards to this is a challenge as well to Otonabee's official plan. If we go on to the land tribunal, then we will be paying for a seat at that table, correct?
As far as this particular challenge is that, we can make comments. I understand, Mr. Mayor, through the deputy mayor. There is, it's a difficult road as far as challenging things, as far as the approval for a city plan with the ministry. Certainly, the older rules applied that you could file an objection to the Ontario Municipal Board. The new rules around the Ontario Land Tribunal are a little different, and so we have to sit down and have a conversation with parties like Mr. Smith about how does that avenue exist, and how do we take our particular matter to the ministry, but also to the city itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brad, you're involved in this, and so you may be able to answer it clearly. My understanding is that an upper tiers official plan, the city in this case, cannot be appealed. So you ask for some sort of intervener status where you try to talk to municipal affairs and housing with some concerns about it, but there's no appeal process for an OP. Is that correct?
No, in this manner, it's actually a comprehensive review that is carried out, and then it's submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. They opened the window that closed just recently to make a submission, which OSM made their submission with the report that was previously provided to council with EcoView's report, just identifying your concerns. So what happens then is the ministry policy writers review the concerns. We've already had one dialogue with them, so they're aware of what's happening in Peterborough. So they review that and then provide comments to the minister. Then that's why it's important to follow up with MPP Dave Smith and also the ministry, just to make sure that they're aware of what your concerns are, because with the stroke of a pen, the minister can just approve the city's plan and there's no appeal rights whatsoever. So that's why it's very important to make that submission, which you did, and then we're following that process. Hopefully they reach out to OSM to hear further on what your concerns are, but they were laid out there because the city of Peterborough does have an agreement with yourselves dealing with compensation per residential lot. So if you take those residential uses away, then all of a sudden your compensation has disappeared. So, and in your current official plan, the city of Peterborough had asked you to take 200 acres and set it aside for employment land expansion on the Neil Drive area, which I don't know if it was forgotten, but the city just didn't make reference to that. So these are just some things that the mediator now is kind of the ministry. So discussions with the city might be helpful, that you can approach the city and come to a resolution and then take that to the ministry, but it's more at the ministry level now to make their decision.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Powers, you had your hand up. Nick, has your question been answered, or did you have one?
No, my question has been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Deputy Mayor, your follow-up question?
Yes, and Mr. Smith has referenced certainly one MPP, but we happen to have a cabinet minister who is also in OSM's riding. And I just wanted, I'm sure, Mayor Taylor, that you have followed up with Minister Piccini as well.
That process is ongoing, yes.
Thank you.
it is the city of Peterborough's official plan, so it's
Yeah.
really Dave Smith's turf, but yes, you're right.
Just
Any other-
thinking, sorry,
any-
Mayor Taylor, just thinking with the Ministry of Housing, and it just doesn't hurt to have a few inroads.
Any other questions to Brad on any parts of the presentation tonight? Brad, you did refer to your experience and as a developer, you have quite a bit of it, with regards to dealing with lower tiers and upper tiers in various official plans. And I guess what I heard you say is your experience suggests that lower tiers, the interests of lower tiers are better served when they have their own OP. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I'd agree so, because usually it's if the local council, local elected officials want something for their area, by having your own official plan, it really helps spearhead those initiatives and make them happen quicker, and make sure that they do happen at a local level, which then is supported. Because usually when you bring things forward to the county level, even though you've approved them, they're usually endorsed. They very rarely would go against what your decision and what you want for your area. So by joining forces, that's where I just feel you lose a lot of that safety net, really, and being able to have your local concerns addressed in a timely fashion.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Power, I see your hands up again.
It is, yes.
Okay.
And so I'll try and see. This one didn't get answered, so that's good. Thanks. Brad, appreciate the input. Really good information that you're sharing with us. I'm curious, just to follow up on Mayor Taylor's question, your experience in terms of the process working with municipalities who don't have a lower tier OP versus one that do. Do you find the process is essentially the same in terms of time, effort from your perspective? Or is one sort of a quicker process, a more efficient process, and easier for you to manage? I'm just curious from your perspective as a developer.
I find on the lower tiers easier, because when you're trying to explain what you want to do at the local level, it's easier to explain what the needs is for the local community. When you are trying to deal on the county level, then you're dealing with people that don't know the area that well, and then you're just spending a lot more time selling your case to them and making sure that you get what you're looking for. That's all. You usually do get to the same solution, but sometimes, like with Havelock's case, they were able to call a special meeting, because if you sometimes have to wait for an additional rotation of council, that can really affect when you start your development or you get your approvals, because then there is a appeal period that you do have to wait. So it can delay your developments. That's all.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Brad.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, sorry, just one other follow up to Mr. Smith. So you've mentioned the two municipalities that you have dealt with, the local OPs. So within the county, the one tier, I know there is 4 municipalities that have adopted the county official plan with special policies to make it theirs. What are the municipalities where you have just dealt with the county that you've done developments?
I don't recall anything right off the top of my head. I'm trying to think back. I dealt with Selwyn, but that was local, then brought forward.
Well,
I don't recall.
Selwyn is in the county OP.
They had their own originally, so back when I did my development, now the county still deals with my plan of subdivision that I have there for getting extensions on. So I just deal at the county level there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of council to Brad while he's here? He's a great resource and a lot of experience to utilize. I'm not seeing any. Brad, I want to thank you for taking the time to appear before us tonight and share some of your experience. Certainly there's a benefit, a huge benefit to council of that. I also want to assure you that we will continue to work with you, to the ministry, with concerns we have with the city's OP. It has a huge impact, with Otonabee-South Monaghan. And to Deputy Mayor's statement that that will not be forgotten. It's not going to go away. And we will continue to push hard on that. And we probably will do a better job if we can do it through a coordinated effort. So well, I'll let you continue to work with our staff on that. Council, I'm sure, will be very interested in the progress that's being made and eventually hope for a successful resolution. Time will tell.
Great, thank you.
Thank you again, appreciate it. Motion, please, to accept to receive the delegation from Brad Smith of Aon, see Councillor Howie and Councillor Powers. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving down now to staff reports. Council, we have a really full agenda tonight, and I'm going to try to be patient and allow every member of council the opportunity to ask the questions they need to ask, because there's some big decisions coming up, but I will be pushing a little bit. At some point in time, we may need a motion to extend our meeting past the usual 8:30 deadline. If we're getting close to that and I can see we need a little more time to wrap it up, I'll keep that as the ace in the hole. And if I need to use it, then I will. So we'll turn it over now to Greg with 12.1. And this is the review of the comprehensive township official plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report is in with the agenda and with council packages. Following the January the 24th meeting, where this particular subject was put forth in an initial report, council respectfully requested that staff answer a series of questions and around the county of Peterborough and the OP, and those questions are in the report. So what I'll do is I'll quickly go through the report. There are also 4 scenarios that play out, and I may in a little bit sort of screen share the scenarios just to give council a review of sort of what we did. So when that particular request came back, there was a meeting between myself and our planner, and as well our consulting planner, our solicitor, and as well we reached out to the county. We also reached out to a couple of the townships that are currently a part of the county official plan. And so we wanted to make sure that the information that we were putting together for the report was factual, and as far as advice was being able to be provided to the council. So it took a little while for us to have that particular conversation and consultation. So the official plan, and I'll go to the questions that have been raised by the council and refer to those particular items. So we're in the process right now of review. So the county's in the process of review, draft review for their final draft of their official plan. So the timing is a bit of an essence here. They have to provide and do the public consultation piece, as well as the submission into the ministry for approval prior to the 1st of January of 2022. So some of the questions were asked was about, how does the OPA process work? Or how does the process related to OPAs, applications around those, the development of policy related to the official plan, and so the question that council really raised with us is, there are 4 townships that have their own local OPs. There are 4 that do not. So how does it work differently in the 4 townships that are part of the county OP? So the townships that have, in the report, it says the townships that have their own standalone OP are Cabin-Monaghan, Havelock, Belmont, Methuen, Municipality Trent Lakes, and OSM. The municipalities that are part of the current county OP, it was the township of Selwyn, township of Asphodel Norwood, and the township of Duro-Dummer. And those particular communities And those townships joined the county plan in 2008. And then North Kawartha joined in 2012. And so what we wanted to do was look at what the difference in the processes are currently within that plan. So I'll get Heather to screen share here, because this is where we did the scenarios. And we did two scenarios, but we separated it into two different considerations. So the first one is, the first scenarios are official plans that are applicant initiated or applicant driven. So if there's an applicant, I mean, an individual like we just heard from Mr. Smith. So what happens currently and what happens with the other townships and how much does it cost? Because there was a cost question that was in there. So currently, as this scenario shows, and I'll go through it really quickly, around an amendment to the township OP and the county OP. So the left-hand side of the screen here shows what happens in the township currently with a standalone OP. The right-hand side shows the process that happens with those townships that are a part of the county. So both start with a pre-consultation process. That's a requirement of the Planning Act. The township reviews the application. We typically have, so that application comes to us. So it comes to the township. And so when they come here, they file that application with us. They pay their fees to us. And maybe Heather, if you just want to scroll up a little bit, and we'll show the fees. So right now, based on our fee bylaw, our fee is $8,320, and we collect a deposit, which is a refundable deposit for, which is to pay for any review type or peer review type services, and whatever's left in that deposit is refunded back to the applicant. And then there's a county review fee of $1,100. So as we go through the process, and it was in the report, the difference is that the county, that our council, our township council, is the they sit as a planning body, and that they would hold the public meeting under section 17 of the Planning Act, and they render a decision. And so they are the, I think in the referred to in the Kevin Monaghan opinion that was in there, they are noted as the body that provides that initial, it's the local decision-making body is what our council does. And if it's adopted, the package goes to the county, and the county staff review the package and provide a staff report and recommendation for county council for refusal or approval. The process with the county, the township is an invitee. So in the pre-consultation, the county is an invitee. We still have to do the same process of review with the township. We would do this in conjunction with county staff. So when under the case for the county OP is, we would host a public meeting, but there's no decision or no adoption, and because we don't have the statutory authority to adopt it. And so typically a county planner would come in and would run this particular statutory public meeting. After the meeting, the county staff do a report, it goes to the county and for adoption and approval. So what we've done is we've gone through and said, what's an example of this? What's an example of an applicant driven OP? So going back to 2016, here are 3 applications for OPs that have been made to amend our local OP. So Belmar Holdings, Louts RV Resort, and Fontaine. So in these particular bylaws. So in this particular case, this is just for an OP amendment, right? And so these entities applied for this OP amendment. If you want to scroll down. So typically what happens is that, as Mr. Smith had referred to, is that many times when the applications are made to the municipality, to the township, they involve an amendment to the OP, and they also then also require an amendment to our zoning bylaw. So we have a combined fee for OPAs and ZBAs. It's $10,400. We take a deposit. We have the county review fees, $1,100. What happens is the same thing happens is there's a pre-consultation for the combined OP-ZBA, and the county is an invitee. Under the County Peterborough official plan, the local township, we would charge our zoning bylaw amendment because that's our responsibility. We would garner a deposit, and then there would be a county fee of the $29.75 and the deposit of $7,500. So in this particular case, and in conversation with the county, is that the county would provide back to the township, as far as fees were concerned, of $1,000 for the OP. And so then they would retain the remainder of the fee. So, and in this, also in this particular case, the application by the applicant in the township case to the left, is that both of those applications are made here, and they're made directly to the municipality, to the township. And in the county case, they'd have to make one application with us for the zoning and an application to the county for the OPA. So in this particular case, our council, because we sit as a planning body, and we've just recently done this, holds two public meetings concurrently under section 17 and under section 34. So you make a decision. Again, council is the first, renders the first decision. Again, if adopted, they prepare the package, it goes off to the county, and the county staff review the package. Under the case of a county owned, and as I said, the county OP, and in speaking with a couple of the other local councils that are currently in this particular regard, and with the county, is that we would review the township staff would review the application, provide a report with a recommendation to the county. The township council hosts an OP meeting. There's no decision or adoption is made because we don't have the statutory authority. Then we would hold with the county, our council would sit as a planning body and hold the zoning bylaw amendments meeting. You adopt the refuse or defer the ZBA, and it would go, and the report would go on to the county. So that's that's applicant driven for both just a regular OP. And here's a couple of examples. So we're currently in the middle of an application for City County Organics facility because they're doing an OPA and a ZBA. And if council remembers that Town and Country also did this with OPA number 5 and the zoning bylaw for this particular application and this applicant. The next scenario is what happens when we do a comprehensive OP. And so what we mean by comprehensive OP is we're changing the nature of a policy. And so some of the examples that we gave here, which again either combines a separate OP for standalone, or whether it's combined with a zoning bylaw amendment. So these two scenarios sort of deal with things like the work that we did with our cannabis policies. They've also dealt with our policies related to secondary dwellings, on-farm diversified use, are covered by these two next types of examples. So again, it's as we go through these particular items, and there is a comprehensive development, we do all of the consultation under the township OP. We hold the public meeting, and council sits as a planning body. And then, if adopted, we prepare the submission package to the county, and it goes to the county for approval or refusal. If this particular it was to happen, so the other thing that we do in this case is we typically would hire a planning firm to provide us with the draft OP and the language for the OP. And if, under the next scenario, if there's a zoning bylaw that's also required to it, then that cost is ours. And Heather, if you want to maybe scroll up to the top please, of that page. And so the fees in this particular case, so we pay for we pay for that consulting planner fees. The county fee is waived in this particular case. So in both scenarios, we would pay for a consulting planner. And in the case of the county of Peterborough, some of that could be a cost shared depending on what the agreement is and what the nature of that particular comprehensive OP amendment application is all about. So if you go down to the next scenario, the last scenario, I'm trying to go through these quickly, so that if there's a zoning bylaw application that is part of this comprehensive official plan, again, it's in our particular case now, we would have hold two separate public meetings under section 17, which deals with the OPA, under section 34 for the ZBA. You refuse, either approves, refuse, defers. The applications off it goes to the county. And so it's same thing with the process is that we have to have a pre-consultation with the applicant and with the county about the ZBA, pre-consultation with the county for the OP, but we're an invitee, so we're not the one leading this particular process. And that we would start the whole process of coming up with the body of those particular comprehensive plans that we wanted to have. And we would hold our ZBA meeting again under section 34. There would not be a section 17 meeting here. That particular meeting would happen at the county level, and where county staff would provide the staff report and recommendation for the adoption and approval. So there was a question about how do we differentiate those pieces, and Heather, that was as far as the scenarios were concerned. So here's some examples around the OFDU. We also did this for source water protection, secondary suites, and cannabis policies. And we've done 10 OPAs since our current official plan was updated in 2016. So based on this information and the conversations that we've had, Heather, you can drop the screen share. So there were some other questions that were posed by the council. And the council, and a lot of these were related to cost. Is there productivity savings? Is there cost savings? And so really from our particular perspective is, regardless of how we proceed, we still have to hire, we still have to maintain and have on our staff a planner, which we do. We still have to spend resources and time on research and working with other peer review agencies. And so from a cost perspective, the report says that there's not really a cost or a productivity advantage for us to stay on a standalone or go into the county plan. So there's just not enough there that would sort of move the needle on the cost piece. The one advantage that we have in these particular scenarios with the township OP is the applicant comes into our office and the applicant files both of, if it's an OP and a ZBA, and pays the fees, pays them to us, and it comes into the township, and we start that process with the applicant and taking them through the pre-consultation stage and the preparation of the planning report and those sort of types of things. If we go, if this transfers to the county for the county submission and the county OP, is that we would be sending that applicant to the county. And so we want to make sure that that applicant gets as much support as they possibly can in the preparation of these particular applications. And we want to be able to, make it a timely and a fulsome process. The third question was that there was going to be some major cost savings as a part of the April 2019 report. there are not any, what we can see and what we can find here is we've been trying to drive our planning and our building departments for full cost recovery based on fees coming in to pay for our planning functions. I'm pleased to report in 2021 was the first year that we made it to that target, where we did generate enough, quite a bit of planning activity for us, and we garnered a little bit more than a break-even position for revenue versus expenses in 2021. So that there's no residual going back to the municipal taxpayer in 2021 for this particular service. So the applicants are paying the cost of the service. So that sort of gives those 4 questions that council asked. So their productivity savings. We don't envision it, and we don't see that based on looking at all of these particular items. We've spoken to other jurisdictions about this, and as well through some of our advisors as far as our consulting planner and legal, and so we don't necessarily see that the one piece that I'll end here with, Mr. Mayor, is that the cost of updating the OP. So we had envisioned that we were going to have to update our local OP. So we have made monies, transferred monies, and put them into reserve to pay for that particular that process. So we have that money in reserve for us to be able to do that. So if we go down the road and we have to update our OP, which we do have to, that money has been put away in a very similar methodology that we would help pay, for instance, for elections. Elections are every 4 years. We put a little bit of money aside every year to pay for that election, so we don't get a big hit in year 4. So we've done the same thing here. Doing a municipal comprehensive review typically is a 5-year rotation, and so that there has been a change at the province. So for those particular entities, whether it be lower tier or upper tier, that go into to do a municipal comprehensive review, that comprehensive review lasts for 10 years rather than 5. And so we can we've made that particular commitment. We have that money set aside. So if that's a decision that council is going to make, we have that ability, so we don't have to reach back into the taxpayer for additional monies that we've been able to plan that. So I think, Mr. Mayor, that's regardless of how the update would occur, there's one taxpayer, so we have to go back to that one taxpayer, and that's how we've been sort of funding our planning department, is through fees. But again, putting monies aside for us to do some of these longer term planning projects. So I guess I'd like to close and thank everybody for their contributions in helping us put together this report. So certainly thank our planning staff and our consulting planner and our solicitor, but also like to thank the neighboring townships that we spoke with, and as well the county planning staff. They've been very helpful. So we wanted to try and give as much factual information that would come to council, and then you can ask any questions, Mr. Mayor, that they might have based on the report that you see here. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor, and then we'll try to answer any questions that the council might have.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much. You've done your best to provide answers and information to the questions that council had from a previous meeting. Before we start, there's a couple of things I'd like to do. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we have joining us for this meeting tonight for this particular topic. We have the CAO for the County of Peterborough, Sheridan Graham. We've got the Director of Planning, Brian Weir, and the Senior Planner, Ian Mudd. Thank you very much to county staff for being here. You've made yourselves available, and our council is aware of the fact that you're here as a resource. If we have questions to ask you about process or clarification or anything, you're here to do that, and we certainly appreciate it. I want to make the point that regardless of which direction our township decides to go with regards to its official plan, It is in no way, I can assure you, in no way a reflection of the lack of confidence in planning staff for either the county or our township, regardless of which way we go. We have the utmost respect for county planning staff. We have the utmost respect for our own planner. All of you folks do a great job. You're very knowledgeable, you're very professional, and you're an extremely valuable resource for our council to have, and we certainly appreciate it. So I don't want anybody to think this is driven by a lack of confidence or a lack of capability in anybody here as they do their jobs. That is not the case. We're strictly trying to make a decision on what we think is in the best interest of the township. The last point I want to make before I open up the questions is, how did we get here and why? And I think that's a very important consideration, just to pause for a moment and to reflect on that. We as council made a decision about 3 years ago. Our council was not quite 3 months into the first term. We had a CAO who was not quite 3 weeks into his first month. We had a staffing model at our township that doesn't exist anymore, that put a huge amount of pressure and work on one particular individual. We now have a different staffing model for planning at the township. We certainly, our CAO has been in place for some time, and our council has now been in the chair for 3+ years. So we have a much better understanding, I think it's fair to say, of what's being requested, what should be considered. And with that in mind, I was the one who suggested to our CAO that we should take this back to our council to make sure that they completely understand what's being asked, completely understand the implications of it, and make sure that the decision that we make today is the same one or not that we considered making 3 years ago. So that's how we're here, and that's why. Such a big decision. I really thought it deserved, I guess, what the federal government would call a sober second thought. Okay, turning it over to questions now. I see Deputy Mayor Clark with a hands up. Please use your hands up function, council, if you have a question, and you can direct it to any of our staff or any of the county planning staff. Go ahead, Bonnie.
So first of all, I will ask county staff to speak to the costs. I do have some concerns that there is no time or dollar savings when we go to a comprehensive county OP. We would need to use a consultant in order to do our updated official plan review. That $50,000 is in a reserve. It is taxpayer dollars. In my opinion, it could be better spent to review our bylaws, which we are designated to do so by provincial policy and legislated to do so. An OP is about 70 to 80% provincially legislated. Not a lot of wiggle room for changes. We can still have special policies put into place to make it OSM for our municipality. And I speak to the plan of subdivision that one municipality has changed from that need from a threshold of 3 to a threshold of 5. Another municipality allows severances off private roads. So those all could be amalgamated into make ours an OSM by putting them under a section in the county OP. The other thing, we would not have to do any amendments, so no cost to our taxpayers on that account. Our OFDU was not alterated in any point by the county, so that could be just a notice of council to put that in. Those OFDUs, the policy on cannabis, our source water, those all could have been, if we were looking to do them, through the county, and that would be then a cost for the entire county, not just OSM. And do bear in mind, even if we opt for our own, and the county as one, our taxpayers are still paying for the county and paying for the provincial one. I spoke to Kevin Monaghan, they did opt out, but they're a different animal, and they are looking at huge development over there. they have the staff, 3 licensed planners, 2 building inspectors, full-time development, and have a huge amount of infrastructure in the ground. Otonabee-South Monaghan, we're just a different animal, in my opinion. The OPs are reviewed by staff with a reimbursement, I believe, or 1,000, maybe 1,100. If we're concerned that we're not covering off our costs here, I think we need to go to the county and ask for a review of those figures. And I understand that as far as any revisions to cost, that was done way back in 2015. So it is up for a review so we can cover off costs. Our county and township staff, in my opinion, have always had a great working relationship, and Mayor Taylor spoke to that, and would provide consistent and sound policies across the county. I don't see that as a problem. In all the amended OPs that have come through the county, it is based on provincial policy and planning. So again, not a lot of wiggle room. Therefore, I do not see that as a problem or us clashing up against them. We have never on county council, for the time I have sat there, went against what the council members wanted for their own municipalities sitting around that table. So just a couple of things. And I did ask Brad Smith what his experience was with dealing with the upper tier, and I think he's speaking just from the lower tier. I don't see how that. I know Havelock, Belmont, Methuen, ourselves, there is only 4 are in the county official plan already. I spoke to all of them who are quite happy with the county OP. And there were 4 others that had the thought of going into it. Cavan and Monaghan has opted out. I think the one thing that we need to be reassured around this table is just if we go into the OP, and my mind hasn't changed about that, then we need that clause for reassurance for our council on how we withdraw from it if that it was deemed that it was not working for us. I don't see that as an outcome in talking to the 4 members that already have used the county OP for a number of years. But I think that would just be reassurance to council and our taxpayers. So I will quit with that.
So I didn't get a question throughout all of that, Bonnie. Is that correct?
No, I'd like staff from the county to speak to the fees. Also to speak to the process of OPs when it relates to municipalities that are within versus the ones that are without, because in asking Brad Smith, it was clear that he really hadn't had the experience with the 1-tier OP.
Okay, so if county planning staff are if you understand the question, if I'm not sure which one wants to take it on, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if okay, I could speak to that question. So as I understand from Deputy Mayor Clark, the question is the process as you currently deal with an amendment, and then the process as we deal with it at the county level if we just deal with the county official plan. So the thing to keep in mind is that the Planning Act is governing legislation, no matter which OP you're under. So it sets the framework, pre-consultation, application, circulation to agencies, public meeting, adoption of the amendment, and then notice of adoption in an appeal period. So whether it's at the township level or the county level, that process is consistent, and it's outlined in the Planning Act. So the system that you're used to right now as your CAO advanced to you is that you do a pre-consultation, you accept an application, you do the circulation, you have the public meeting, your council determines whether or not they are going to adopt the amendment or deny the amendment. If you adopt the amendment, it comes to the county. We as a staff level review that submission, and we make a recommendation to county council for approval or denial of the official plan amendment. And then we do a circulation of the of the notice as a result of council's decision. Under the process, if you're to fall solely under the county official plan, we have a pre-consultation bylaw. With the 4 municipalities that are in the county OP right now, they are a big player. Our pre-consultation meetings, we invite the local staff to attend because it is happening within your municipal boundaries. So you are a big player. And we also invite all the other required agencies, such as the Conservation Authority or Public Works with respect to roads, or MTO if MTO is involved, if it's on a provincial highway. We set out the guidelines as far as what will be required for a complete application. So the study requirements, our fee structure, the application, and also the the deposit that's required. So when that complete application comes in, and this is, I think, sort of a key thing I want to touch on in the comparison of the two. So our application fee is the $2,950. We ask for a deposit of $7,500 to review studies. Now, the Director of Planning and myself as Manager of Planning have authority that we can reduce that price. So let's say there is no studies required in support of it. We don't ask for the $7,500. Or if there's only one study, we may talk to our planning, our consultants, and determine that we only need a deposit of $2,500. The $7,500 would come into play with a larger development where they're issuing a number of studies. So we try to work with the applicant and try to reduce fees in that fashion. And then $1,000 of our $2,950 fee gets forwarded to the township. We recognize that township staff are still involved, doing a review of the application, doing a report to your council with respect to whether or not you should support the application. So once we get the application, then it's in our hands, right? So once it's filed, we circulate, we do all the administrative work, we circulate the application gets circulated to the municipality. When we first set this up, it was very important to us that we felt that the public meeting should still be held at the local municipal council. And we think that's important because the land use change is taking place within your boundaries. So what we have is we delegate the public meeting to the local council, same as we do with plans of subdivision. We have a member of county council who will attend as a county council rep, and then we have county staff that attend to speak to the application. After the public meeting, we rely on the municipality to provide their opinion to the county, whether or not you support the application or you do not support the application. And then we conduct our thorough planning review based on other inputs from the public, from all the agencies, and then we prepare a report for council's consideration at the county council level. I can say for the 4 municipalities that are currently in the county OP, their opinions are very heavily weighted. Obviously, if it's an issue that the municipality is not supportive of, lots of time that comes out in the pre-consultation process, as I'm sure it does within your existing process now. We work very closely with applicants. We're not an upper tier in the sense that we're unattainable to get to contact or deal with. We work very closely with applicants to assist them all we can, and to provide any input we can back to the municipality when there's any questions. So when I looked at the pricing that your CAO had put together in this report, I would suggest to you that under the single tier process, we're about $3,000 cheaper. If you do the combined one where you're dealing with an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, we do that with our other municipalities now. We run the applications concurrently. We make sure that there's one public meeting to deal with both applications. So the system is fairly streamlined. It's been working for the other 4 municipalities since 2008. They're obviously happy with that process as they're continuing on under our current structure.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Brian, did you have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other thing too is one thing that isn't in here. Sometimes we do have plans of subdivision too that run concurrently along with the zoning bylaw. So we sort of have that scale of economy where we can cover off all three types of applications in one process in conjunction with the local municipality. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention was the amount of time that it takes to write up pre-consultation notes as well. I think Ian he kind of glossed over that, but after our pre-consultation meetings, we have comprehensive notes that are done by our planning staff and sent out to all attendees. So everybody knows exactly what's required. And then of course, the mayor and deputy, you've seen our comprehensive reports at county council as well. So we prepare those. One of the scenarios that hasn't been played out, and I must admit it hasn't happened very often at all, but there is the potential, is where there's a requirement for an official plan amendment at both levels, where you have an official plan amendment at the local level and it doesn't conform with the county plan, but maybe there's some planning merit in that. So now you have to amend the county official plan as well. So now you've got two application fees for OPAs that are basically doing the same thing. And then you basically have two separate processes. So I just wanted to add that in as a sort of an additional scenario, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Brian. I see Councillor Allen has a question. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor, and through to you. First, I start with, we spoke that 3 years ago, we decided to go down this road, and even though we are very novice in our role as councillors, I do believe in the decision that was made at that date. I believe at that time I felt it was an efficient use of the opportunity to join the county, and I'm still leaning towards that decision because I look at the costs, and the costs alone to the resident. So although it's a mere $50,000, it's still being brought, and I'm speaking to, on a regular 5-year review of our official plan. It still would be, if we were standalone, it would be something we would be required to do. So for me, the cost is still a part of the decision-making process and the efficiency to conduct our business. So I don't know that there's, a mute cost. I do believe that there is some, from a resident standpoint, and many residents would never be affected by an official plan. And in fact, I would think it would be a high percentile directly affected by it. But at the taxation time, we're still talking about affecting them by going down that road. So secondly, and I think Mr. Weir just addressed that, where I had a question around if there would be and at any time would a applicant have to cover both fees, both applicable to the OSM and at the county level. You can clarify that if possible. But a big part of the concern or the questioning tonight and in the past has been around, particularly around stakeholder specific OSM asks or requirements to an official plan that combines the county and other municipalities. So I was just wondering if at the county, if someone could clarify how that particular component of a blended official plan works now. I think over the past 3 years, we've did some OPAs that I think we can hang our hat on and say we're proud of, and I wouldn't want to lose that local content that we work so hard and on and brought to our municipality. An example might be the secondary suites or the on-farm diversified use and stuff. So I was just wondering if the county could explain how that works, how that looks, and possibly, and I think Ian touched on it, you mentioned a bylaw with regard to, is there a bylaw in regard to how this functions? I think you mentioned that as that the municipality, the local municipality was always brought to the table in consultation. So there's a bundle of questions there, and I'll leave it with you to jump on and answer those for me if you could.
And I'll let whatever county staff wants to answer them. But first, I'll just clarify something, unless I'm mistaken. But if the township has its own official plan and updates it next year, it's good for 10 years. correct? Not 5. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. County staff, you've understood the questions.
Yep.
They're all yours. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe just clarification on your question there. Your OP is only good for 10 years if you adopt a totally brand new official plan, not just an update. So it would have to be a full new official plan, not just like a 5-year review. That's the requirement in order to be exempt from doing any reviews for 10 years. So with respect to Councillor Allen's questions, first off, I just touch on the bylaw that I mentioned. So we have a mandatory pre-consultation bylaw at the county. And that is permitted under the Planning Act, and it requires that before anybody files an application, they have to come in and speak to us. If somebody just tries to file an application without meeting with us or any of the agencies, we simply return the document. And that was put in place under the Planning Act a few years back because what was happening was people were simply trotting in and filing applications without speaking to anybody. And so they didn't have the required studies that were required, let's say an EIS associated with a wetland that conservation would want to see, a traffic study that our own public works or MTO would want to see. So they made changes under the Planning Act that allowed municipalities to pass pre-consultation bylaws. We jumped on it. It's been a very effective process. As Brian had mentioned, after we have those meetings, the applicant walks away with a package and clearly understands what they're applying for, what they need to apply for, and the types of studies that are going to be required in order to have a complete application. And it helps to streamline the process as well. So I hope that clarified that. With respect to your existing, some of the OP work that you're proud about that you've done, by all means, our local municipalities that have done or been involved in the county OP since 2008, and then Duro Dummer joined in 2012. There are specific policies in there that they want to see. So we have done for Selwyn Township, they've done a cannabis one. We've done ones related to secondary suites as well. So anything that you have that you want to pull forward, we're more than happy to pull that forward. And in fact, the current draft that's out there now, for review, just looked at it today, just in preparation for today's meeting. And pages 202 to 219 are dedicated specifically to Otonabee-South Monaghan. So those are policies that we have brought forward with respect to they're currently in your official plan. I would also say that so we had a TAC committee, a technical advisory committee that was made up of the 8 municipalities planning staff, as well as the 2 First Nations and county staff. And as we drafted this new OP, we sat down and we went through the various sections. So as an example, the secondary units, pretty homogeneous legislation there. So we developed, we looked at, okay, what's everybody currently have and how can we create a more consistent approach? So it may not read exactly as everybody currently has, but all members of the technical advisory committee were supportive of the wording. If there is something as you go through your review of that draft, you say, you know what, it doesn't quite meet what we want it to do. So we would like a specific policy for OSM. By all means, we can tailor make something and put it in there that is, as long as it complies with legislation, because we are obviously have to comply with the growth plan and the provincial policy statement. But we've done that. Duro Dummer is an example where they have always wanted to permit development on private roads. And so there's policies in there that allow development on private roads. Selwyn has never wanted to have development on private roads. So we have policies in there that says in Selwyn, you're not going to have development on private roads. So we've tailor-made the document to suit the needs of the local municipalities. And we plan to continue doing that. And if there's specific policies that you want added, we will add them to the plan.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And I just realized that I unintentionally, inadvertently moved you down the pay grid or a level or two. I think I referred to you as a senior planner and not the manager. I apologize for that.
That was a long time ago, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, you're getting senior, more senior by the day.
Yeah.
The pre-consultation requirement, Ian, I think that's fairly standard with any municipality that has an official plan. Is that correct? Muted, Ian.
Sorry, I think these days it is. I know we were one of the first out of the gate in the county, and a lot of the municipalities followed suit once we passed the bylaw. But it's a great process, and it really helps guide the applicant. I find a lot of the developments we deal with now, we're dealing with more GTA-based developers. So they're fairly seasoned, especially in the subdivision work. But lots of times when we're doing official plan amendments, we're dealing with local citizens that have never been through the planning process. So it's an opportunity to make them understand the process and educate them a little on the process. And people go away with a good sense of what they need to do in order to submit an application and advance what they want to do.
Okay, thank you. Greg, I see you with your hand up. I'll let you jump in and then we'll go to Councillor Powers next.
Just really quickly, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do have a pre-consultation requirement as well. And we do not go down the path of an application, whether it's an official plan or a zoning or a minor variance without the requirement of a pre-consultation. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Just a question, I think, for county staff. I think the crux of the challenge, or why we may not want to move to the county OP, is around that loss, or that feeling of loss of control related to some of our planning activities, or things that we would like to see or not see within our community. And that feeling that currently with our own official plan, we have that control, if you were. And the feeling is that we would, by giving up the official plan within the local level, we would be giving up that control, and that the county would essentially be able to make decisions moving forward for local township related planning matters, much more so than they do today. And I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to that concern, because I think that really cuts the chase a little bit around the concern that some individuals have related to that.
Right. So maybe I'll jump in, and Brian might want to follow up. So that is a pretty realistic point of view. We've heard it many times. And so maybe just as a bit of background on how the county OP got to be, when we went through amalgamations, we went from our 16 municipalities down to 8. A lot of the municipalities ended up with 2 official plans, right? So you would have had an Otonabee official plan and a South Monaghan official plan. So the warden of the day from Asphodel Norwood, Doug Piercy, he looked at the process and he said, is there any reason why we couldn't just put our local context into the county official plan, and so we wouldn't have to have an official plan? And we said, by all means, we could write it that way. And so he reached out at county council to all the other municipalities and said, I think we're going to follow this route. We don't see the need to carry on with the costs associated with updating and maintaining an official plan and doing updates every 5 years. And Selwyn Township and North Kawartha Township, they all jumped on board. And then 4 years later, we had Duro Dummer join in. I would suggest to you that, I can't speak for the politicians, but hopefully you've maybe reached out to some of your counterparts at the other municipalities. I don't think they've felt a loss of autonomy. As I mentioned, we take a lot of weight in direction from the local municipality and their wishes and their needs. Mr. Brad Smith was on here earlier about development of Aon home in Havelock. We've dealt with Aon home in developments in Lakefield, and there's planned subdivision there that we've dealt with. We're on board. The municipality, it's important to them and they want it. And as long as it complies with planning legislation, same as your own staff have to deal with the planning legislation, we're on board to assist the municipality and help move developments forward. So I think the only way I can truly answer your question is that you really need to reach out to your politicians in your other foreign municipalities or in the county OP and see if they felt that they've lost any autonomy. And you know, by virtue of we're going through this process, we've been through this process a couple of times, and none of those municipalities have ever said, you know what, this isn't working for us and we're going to opt out. They've continued to move forward and stay within the county structure in the OP.
Right, appreciate that, Ian. If I can, just a follow-up question from
I bet I know what it is.
Oh,
Go ahead, Nick.
actually, this is a staffing related question at the county. So I'm not sure if that's where you're going, Mayor Taylor, but my question was around with the ingestion of all of these new potential townships into the OP, does that, I guess, do you have the staffing levels necessary today to intake that additional workload that will be coming?
Right, so through you, Mr. Mayor, at the county level, we've got 3 area planners and 1 senior planner, and myself as manager of planning, and then Brian as the director. So the workload really doesn't shift too much because if there is currently an amendment in Otonabee-South Monaghan, that file ultimately comes up to the county, and you've got a county staff person that has to process it at the county level, has to review the documentation, do a report. We do the presentation to county council, the notice of adoption after it's done, signing of the amendment at the end of the appeal period, and returning it back to the local municipality. So the number of amendments, we have the staff complement to, I think, continue to handle the level of development that we currently see.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. Over to Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, and I thought maybe this was the question that Councillor Powers was going to ask, and I could take my hand down. So you mentioned, I have spoke to the 4 municipalities that have been in it for a number of years, and they, I did not receive any negative input back. They were all very happy with it and thought that there was a cost savings and efficiency. But the question, as you said, no one has even mentioned opting out. So maybe this is through the mayor to Sheridan. Is there, what is the process in place if a municipality did want to opt out? Or Brian?
Oh, sorry. I see Brian put up his hand. I'm happy to answer.
You can start if you want, Sheridan, but I can handle that if you want.
I'll go to you, Brian, and I can finish up if you need to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor. The process to opt out, and as I say, we haven't had anybody do that. We've just had people that have wanted to opt in, and Cavan Monaghan has pulled out at the last minute. But the process would be that the local municipality would pass a resolution to opt out. That would come to the county. County council saw fit to approve that, and knowing the way our county council works, I mean, they usually side with the direction that a local municipality wants to go. You've seen that with, you know, OPAs and subdivisions that have come through from support with a local municipality, and they're in support of that. But anyway, then what would happen is the local municipality would develop its own official plan, go through the process of writing up the public process and all that. Then it would come to the county for approval. And then once it's approved and there are no appeals and no subsequent Ontario Land Tribunal hearings, we would undertake an amendment to our plan to make those changes to give back that that power of having your own official plan. So amending schedules, possibly taking out all those 20 pages of special policies, and perhaps any other references there might be throughout it. But that's basically the process. It's almost like an official plan amendment process, but it'd be one at the local level for your own official plan, and then there'd be an amendment to the county plan to allow that to happen.
Thank
But
you, Brian.
there'd be, you know, in my view, not necessarily any reason for county council to deny such a request.
Thank you. And as you say, Brian, I've sat there for almost a full 4 years, and all the decisions I have seen have certainly, weighed with the municipalities' wishes that we've been dealing with. So I don't see any change on that side.
But they just wanted to just confirm there is a process to opt out if a municipality wanted to.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And yes, actually, Bonnie, you're right. That was the question I thought was coming. Are there any other questions from any members of council to our staff or county staff at this point in time? And I'm not seeing any. And council, I would like us to make a decision tonight. It's only fair to the county. We can't keep this hanging out much longer. We do need to make a decision. The report is there. And I'm wondering if any member of council is at this point in time prepared to put forth a motion. I see Deputy Mayor Clark's hand up. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, I would make the motion that we continue on the process and join the county OP as we had passed. And what is the date, Heather? Maybe could you tell me the date of that motion?
It was April 2019.
To continue with that direction as was given in April 2019, and that we have a recorded vote.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Clark has moved that the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan continue in the direction that was initially provided, and we convert our official plan over into the counties. And I need a seconder. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Allen is seconding that vote. Any discussion on the motion, and there's been a recorded vote called. Any discussion on the motion before we go to the vote? Councillor Powers, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, this is one, I'll be honest with you, that I've gone back and forth with, trying to determine what is the appropriate answer. And I think probably every council member has gone back and forth over the last few days, trying to make sure that they're making the right decision for our township. Ultimately, where I have landed today is that I will be supporting this motion that we stay within the county, or that we move to the county and stay with our original plan in 2019. Simply because I do feel that there is efficiencies and duplications that are occurring at the local in combination with the county official plans, and that we, based on all the information that I have ascertained at this point, do have the ability to make local planning related matters included into the official plan at the county level, and that we can address those issues. And so for that reason, I feel that I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Powers. Anybody else wish to speak to the motion? The only comment I will say before we call the vote is that this is one of those situations where there's really not a wrong answer. I think either way serves the interests of this township very well. So it's just a matter of which way you go, put the most weight on. But definitely there's no wrong here, I don't believe. That's in a way, that's a good position to be in. So Heather, I'll ask you now to conduct a recorded vote.
I'll call each member's name by alphabetical order. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark?
Bonnie, we didn't hear you.
Deputy Mayor Clark?
Still didn't hear.
It's for some reason the audio is not coming through, but I can lip read. You're saying yes.
Yes.
There you are.
I'll put my hand up.
No, that's it. We got it. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me
No.
now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes.
Councillor Howie?
No.
Councillor Powers?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
No.
The vote's carried 3-2.
The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the county staff, for being here and assisting us in this process. I'm sure you understand it's it's a big decision for us, and I wanted to make sure that we had all the information that we needed to make what we felt was an informed decision and the right decision. And I have no doubt that we'll have very little difficulty working with county staff, because we never have before. There's no reason to suggest it'll start now. But we're taking a different direction. That's the decision of council, and I respect that. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend you, though, for taking that sober second thought. No matter, when it comes down to it, ultimately, it's here nor there for county staff. But I want to congratulate you on, thinking of this over, thinking it through, and giving it the attention that it deserves. And, as you say, no matter what, there's no bad answer, no wrong answer, and we continue to work very, very cooperatively with the township, and we really, really appreciate having Ken on our technical advisory committee. Thanks, Ken.
Good. Thank you very much, Brian. Nice comments. Appreciate it. Okay, council, it is 7:30. I think what we're going to do is just take a 5-minute break. I'm reasonably confident we can get through the rest of the agenda by 8:30, even with a 5-minute break. So we'll do that. We'll all be back in 5 minutes. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say thanks to staff on both sides, the county and our own. There's a huge amount of work has gone into this, and it, as you said, Mayor Taylor, there's no right or wrong. And I just want to thank them, because this has, it certainly made us all sitting around this table do a sober second thought. So thank you.
You're welcome. You realize you're cutting into our 5-minute break. And we've got a clerk, so we can resume our council meeting. We just took a short break. We're going to resume our council meeting. We're now moving into 13.1 on our agenda, which is the Public Works Activity Report. And I'll turn it over to our Director of Public Works, Craig Brooks. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor. Thanks for having me tonight. I just want to provide council with a.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if we could just have a point of order here for a second, please.
Certainly, go ahead.
The clerk had her hand up and you had your head down, so.
I didn't see it.
Pardon me, Mayor Taylor, you did skip over the CAO's COVID date report.
Oh, goodness gracious, sorry. Yes, my apologies. And that's, yeah, I apologize. Craig, we're gonna have to put you on hold for a minute.
Hey, we're good. I'm okay. So
We're going to go to 12.2, which is the COVID update. This is an important one. Go ahead, Greg.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an update report, and I'm going to send an email out here this evening. We did get an email from Peterborough Public Health late this afternoon regarding workplaces guidance, updated workplace guidance for businesses and municipalities. So we'll circulate that as well to council, but it didn't come in time it just came in this afternoon. So the report that you have before you really is, an update. We're trying to get back to relative normal, I guess is what you would, the way that we would refer to it. All of our facilities are fully back open, and we're up to full staffing, and all of our other activities, including fire department training and all those things, everything is back in full force and effect, and so we are doing our particular work. The contract that we had with the security firm to check for proof of vaccination at the arena, that we were able to, we had them in monthly increments anyway, so we were able, when this was made, the decision was made to restart things on the 1st of March, coincided with our date, so we didn't have to retain that particular contractor for that particular period. So if there's any questions, Mr. Mayor, I'd certainly be prepared to answer them.
Thank you, Craig. I'll ask council if there are any questions you have this report, and I'll advise council that before we move from this issue, I am going to be putting forward a motion for council to consider with regards to in-person council meetings. So questions to Greg on this report, if any? Members of council? Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, thank you. And through the mayor. So I realized that we had to have that security a contract in order to check that, Greg. Those costs were covered off through the private provincial government, were they not? Or we could utilize them in.
Mr. Mayor, yes, we can utilize some of our COVID funding to pay for those costs. Actually, it's going to be charged back to our salary line. And so what happened was is that we chose to have an individual that's there was going to be checking those particular QR codes. And so, and we didn't schedule some of our part-time staff, so it was a bit of a wash there. But those costs can be charged back to our COVID funding that we did get from the province.
Thank you.
Okay, yep. Any other questions to Greg on this? Thank you very much, Greg. And then following up on that theme about returning to a more somewhat normal stage, I think the appropriate way to deal with this is to ask if any member would be willing to put forward a motion that we authorize staff to, this is like Jeopardy. You got your hand up and you haven't heard the question yet. A motion to authorize staff to make whatever arrangements are necessary for us to proceed with in-person meetings, beginning with our first council meeting in April. Is that what you were going to put? Councillor Allen has put that motion forward and Councillor Powers has seconded it. Any question on the motion, Council? Any concerns? Any questions from staff? I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. I am really hoping that we can get back to in-person meetings in April. Maybe even masks may not be necessary. I don't know that yet, but I'm hoping that once we get to in-person meetings, we don't have to look back because the last time we thought we could get there, things took a U-turn on us, and I'm sure hoping that doesn't happen again. So we've got one more after tonight. We've got one more Zoom council meeting, and then back in person we get. Gonna have to get the dust off the dress shoes. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to Craig and their Public Works activity report. Sorry, Heather.
Mayor Taylor, I have a motion to accept the CEO's update report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and a motion to accept the receipt of the report. That's moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor Howie. All in favor? That is received. Thanks, Heather. Good catch. Okay, Craig, we're going to get to you eventually. Go for it.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Council, happy to be here to provide everyone with an update on Public Works operations. Tonight, I'm going to talk about operations, and operations are going very well in terms of Public Works, water and wastewater. I'm just going to walk through a couple of the highlights of the report because I know everyone has it in front of them. And those highlights are the active weather that we've seen in Otonabee-South Monaghan this winter, the advances that we've made in terms of mesh, and the challenges regarding lake access and boat launches in OSM, and the waste report for 2021, as well as water and wastewater operations. So as everyone has seen and experienced, it's been an old time winter here in OSM Township, and it's been great for me being new on board to see what winter can throw at you in OSM. So we've broken it down, and in terms of the last few months of winter, we've seen 7 winter snow events of approximately 5 centimeters. We've seen 5 snow events, 8 to 15 centimeters, and 2 events of 25 plus centimeters. Along with that, we've seen a lot of wind events. So we've seen a lot of drifting this year. And starting off with the December 11th windstorm, I'm sure everyone can remember that. I know, I believe staff were acknowledged, and I just wanted to personally acknowledge their efforts for that storm. We had 50 trees down right across the township and several roads blocked. And we managed to get those roads cleared and passable within about 5 hours. And I had a resident, it's a good story. I might, if I may share with council, that a lady had called me 2 days after that windstorm and thanking the crew for a job well done. She had a cardiac event on one of the roads, and paramedics had to respond. And she had said how pleased paramedics were that they could actually get to her. They weren't sure that they were going to be able to make it to her on passable roads. So very much appreciate staff, their efforts in particular for that storm. So it has posed some challenges in terms of, even when it wasn't snowing, the snow was blowing. Sometimes it would blow one way one day and another way the next day. So, and I guess the last few weeks we've spent clearing culverts and opening up ditches. And we've had a couple recent weather events that have been particularly challenging, because we saw mild temperatures and rain, and then following day, a substantial amount of snow and freeze up. So it has been challenging to say the least. In terms of Mesh, this is the software that we started implementing in 2021. This allows us to track maintenance on the roads, maintenance on the fleet. It allows it's enhancing our record keeping capabilities with respect to minimum maintenance standards, and in general, maintenance of the right-of-ways. So all staff have been trained in all the patrol modules in Public Works and using it on a daily basis. A deficiency mapping module, which is an overlaid map of the township showing all of the road deficiencies or Public Works deficiencies that need to be addressed. We have a fleet maintenance module that we're starting to roll out. And everyone that works in the garage on the equipment has been trained and starting to use that as well. And just as recent as last week, we started implementing a work order system. So that will allow us to track maintenance and assign work to a different staff for completion. Thirdly, the challenges regarding lake access and boat launches has become a challenge again, and I'm sure everyone can appreciate the challenges of the past with respect to this. In particular, Bolin Road, Settlers Line and Lakeside Drive and Wood Duck Drive have been, we've received numerous calls from residents. And just from a Public Works standpoint, it has been challenging from a safety perspective when we're clearing roads with the tandem plow trucks. We try not to back up when we're doing winter operations. And because generally we're down to a lane, maybe a lane and a little bit, our drivers are forced to back up those roads. So in particular, specifically, I should say, Wood Duck Drive is a fire route. So there are mechanisms that we can put in place and work in step with the fire department to remove those vehicles if necessary. And we can also remove, we can tow vehicles if those vehicles are impeding vehicle traffic on the roadway. And I guess in terms of more of a long-term plan, it would be helpful to understand where council and where we as a municipality want to go with respect to lake access and supporting people that want to enjoy the lake, and but also be mindful of the challenges it poses to local residents and to operations as well. The other thing I wanted to highlight was the waste report for 2021, and we're seeing some really good things in terms of solid waste. In curbside tonnage and container tonnage from curbside waste, we saw a slight reduction in 2021. We saw an increase in hazardous waste tonnage, an increase in electronic waste, as well as an increase in curbside leaf and yard waste, as well as the green waste that's at the waste transfer station. So those are all good things to see increases of. It means our waste diversion is moving in the right direction. And we also filed our annual report, which is a requirement for our C of A for the waste transfer station. It was submitted on February 18th to the MECP. And right now we're working in conjunction with the county to set up paper shredding day as well as compost day. And I will provide further updates on once those days have been solidified. In terms of waste and wastewater operations, the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks did inspections on both of our municipal water systems. And they were focused inspections, and both water systems received a 100% audit mark for both of those systems. And on the wastewater side, the Burnham Meadows pumping station had to have a VFD replaced. That particular pumping station has 2 pumps, and one is used as a duty pump, one's a backup pump. And that pumps the wastewater to the force main, which then goes into the city of Peterborough for treatment. And a replacement VFD was purchased in consultation with the utility with regards to that replacement. That is my report in summary. I'll take questions, of course.
Thank you very much, Greg. And I see a number of hands up. We'll start off with Councillor Allen. Go ahead, Mark. Mark, are you maybe frozen? We'll move on to Councillor Powers, and hopefully Councillor Allen can solve the technical difficulty. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Taylor. Good report, Craig. Just a couple of questions. One is around the boat launches. I think that one we've had conversations about the boat launches in the past, and I know you referenced no parking signs. I think the challenge with the no parking signs that has come up in our discussion previously is around the enforcement side of things as it relates to no parking signs. I know we have no parking signs at other locations, and they can be a bit of a challenge on the enforcement side of things. So I'm just curious, is it, do we have any sense, or do you have any sense as to a bit of a strategy here? You're referencing no parking signs. Are there other things that come to mind as to how we might be able to address these parking related issues? Because I think, we've talked about this, and these are 3 of the, certainly the lake access boat launches, but I think parking in general is a challenge at some of our boat launches, if not all of them.
Yeah, through your Mayor Taylor to Councillor Powers. So some of the things that we've discussed, that I thought about and discussed with Public Works is there is a mechanism there, as I mentioned, to tow vehicles if they are impeding vehicle traffic on the roadway. And I think that's the intent of the no parking, is that we know when vehicles do park there, they are impeding that traffic to the extent that we can remove the vehicles if necessary. So it's been used as a deterrent, but it's getting to the point where we're going to have to start removing vehicles because people can't safely travel in 2 directions on those roads. Thinking a little more in terms of a long-term plan is there room, or is there an appetite to utilize more of the right-of-way and provide pull-off parking in those areas? And again, that's definitely a decision of council, and through working with staff to understand if we can do that, in fact, provide that sort of parking arrangement in those areas. so that residents and even visitors can enjoy those access points. So in terms of the fire route, we can work in step with the fire department. Anytime fire access is impeded, then we have the ability to remove those vehicles.
Right. Okay, yeah, and I think this came up in our previous conversations around this as well, is that whole, and part of, I think, the previous notice of motion related to boat launches and safety features, you know, the parking aspect, I think is important for sure. And I think the challenge will be finding locations for parking location, you know, finding land to put a parking lot in, and whether or not we can actually make that happen is how realistic that is.
Perhaps Craig,
Yeah.
an approach could be to refer this to a roads committee meeting as one of the items we discuss, and maybe we can come up with some sort of recommendations to bring back to council for consideration. I see Greg with his hand up. I don't like to ignore our staff, so Greg, I'll let you jump in next before we go to Councillor Howie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess there's a bit of a difference here, a bit of a nuance, is that a lot of our challenge has been through winter control types of activities, councillor powers. And so in those particular cases that we can, so it's different than in the summer when people are just parking there, you know, indiscriminately. So the access points that Mr. Brooks has advised, so Wood Duck and Bolin and those areas, those are primary access points to the ice. And so they're primary points for us for ice rescue, for fire. And as well, we have to keep them clear for winter control purposes. So there are different rules that are available to us around that, around winter control and emergency. So we can sign them, but we have that ability to have them removed, right? Because of the type of activity that we're undertaking. And so, you know, the conversation we've had with our staff is we'll have them removed into the residence, and that we shouldn't be making any attempt for any of our staff to remove them or tow them away. So if it's going to impede our winter control, if it's going to impede our emergency access, we can make the call and have those particular vehicles removed. So it's a little bit of a different thing than in the summertime when we have people just parking on the side of the road. So I decided to offer that at that comment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Councillor Howie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Taylor. And yes, a very good report, Craig. I know in hand seeing the parking issues along these roads, and through your winter months, I think we're seeing it's a lot of local residents that are using it. Where the summertime, we have the out of resident areas that are coming in. So it's something we got to really look at. And like you say, I like the recommendation that we take it to the Public Works meetings and see if we can come up with some sort of solution in all the areas. So, and just as a follow-up, not really on your report, but just going forward right now, looking at the fuel cost that is coming up right now, you know, 25% increase already. Do you feel that's going to affect your budget? Are we going to have to start looking at ways to try and limit how much driving we do and be more efficient?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Howie. Absolutely. You know, we're trying to, I would say on a daily basis, figure out ways that we can become more efficient just in general. And hopefully those efficiencies will offset some of the fuel costs. Yeah, when we're seeing fuel costs at 25% plus increase, it's definitely something that may warrant to revisit that line item in the budget to make sure that we're adequately planning for fuel costs going forward.
Okay, thank you, Craig. I'm going to go back to Councillor Allen, who had his hand up first, but unfortunately got unceremoniously booted. So welcome back, Mark. I don't know if you were able to hear the conversation that went on while we were off, but it may have been covered or may not. Go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. And no, I wasn't able to hear. I completely lost internet service. So I was gonna, and I'm glad we're still on the Public Works report. Thanks, Craig, for that report. Just with regard to boat launches, and I think I caught the tail end of Councillor Howie, and I think he was speaking towards that. Particularly, I mean, I live on Boland Road. I understand from a residence standpoint, and I'm also a local fisherman, so I understand from the user group standpoint. So I think I caught the tail end of it, maybe it being looked at, or maybe going to Public Works Committee for further discussion and investigation. Just wanted to put my support. Obviously, we have to keep the roads accessible for emergency services and such. But it definitely is a wonderful asset we have here in OSM Township. It's part of what keeps Awesome Township awesome is Rice Lake. So providing access to those residents and those beyond our local community that wish to use the lake is a very important item to me, and I think to rest of council. So I think if we can take a look at that, the nice part of it is that the winter ice season is almost over, and I think that does put some demand on specific launches where in the summer certain launches at the Otonabee River and Indian River are able to be used where not necessarily for ice fishing. So I think just a further look at that, to find a solution that works for everyone, and maybe potentially come up with some off-site or off advanced shoulder parking or something that we can work towards. So that's kind of where I was at. And if it wasn't going to Public Works Committee, that it goes to the right committee. I think that's probably a good starting point.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Allen. Two more speakers and then we will move on. Deputy Mayor Clark, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, thank you through the mayor to Craig. Great report, very thorough. I thank you for that, and nice to see those tonnages going down as well, and going up where we want them and down where we don't. So I'd like to go back to the boat launches, and certainly we have to accommodate our visitors and people within OSM that want to utilize these, but we have to do it in a safe and make sure emergency is accessible to ensure that safety. So just a couple of questions. I'm certainly supportive of it going back to the roads. I'd like to know about the 66-foot right-of-ways. Are those all standard in these boat launches? It does become difficult because we've got boat trailers or snowmobile trailers, unless it's ice fishing and someone with a hut. So there's different challenges around different seasons here. So I was just curious to know. And I'll do my three in a row, answer them however you like to, Craig. So the other one was fuel costs. I was same with Councillor Howie, concerned about how that implements the roads budget. And that is something that we do not have control over. And the third is the pumping station. And we have to have that backup valve. It's a $7,000 cost. To tell you the truth, I was quite shocked. It was only $7,000. I thought it would have been more. And just to know what our reserve is, I know we did put monies aside in anticipation of things like that happening. And I apologize to staff if you don't have that, Greg, at your fingertips. I should have put that into you earlier, and just an email out to us to tell us what the reserves are at on that facility would be acceptable to me.
Thanks for the question. And if I may, through you, Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Clark, the 60, if I understand your question correctly, the 66-foot right-of-way would apply to the roads that we're speaking of, and I guess it's something that we have to look at a potentially a committee level to understand what the feasibility would be to build a designated parking area, much the same as what we did on Drummond Line for the trail. It would be just a bump out of the road. It wouldn't be a bona fide parking lot or anything like that. It would just be enough of a parking area that the trucks and trailers or cars or any vehicle can pull off and be off the roadway. We'd have to look at drainage, of course, to make sure that we can provide adequate drainage, despite building the parking area. So I think it's a good conversation to have, and to maybe come up with some options to utilize that full 66 feet as we rightfully can. In terms of fuel costs, my response would be the same as I made to Councillor Howie. We're looking at, and obviously it's been a challenge amidst COVID to keep people separate in separate vehicles as much as we can. We're moving, hopefully we can move back away from that soon, and just building in general efficiencies and work plans and stuff, and how we dispatch work crews. That will save on, or certainly help offset the rising costs of fuel. The pumping station, I can't speak to the reserves. I don't have that figure in front of me. But yeah, those pumps are reasonably small pumps, and the variable frequency drive that runs them, they're fairly economical, and thankfully this particular supplier, we haven't seen costs going up too much on those pieces of equipment as of yet. So, which was another reason why we wanted to be quick to purchase before it went up by 25%, like everything else seems to be these days. I'm not sure if Greg or Heather might have can speak to that reserve at all.
Mr. Mayor, through the Deputy Mayor, we'll look at that. We do have a reserve for our sewer and of course reserve for water. So that particular amount would have gone into those particular reserves. So we'll do some research and send it out. I guess the last thing I'd say is we don't have any wiggle room, so that when one of these things goes down, because it's a force main, we have to have that pump working. And so when it goes down and it's an emergency, it has to be replaced. And that's what we had.
And thank you, Greg, for that. And I apologize for not getting that question off to you sooner. I just want to make sure that, and as you say, you have no choice. You have to fix it, so we do it. I just want to make sure that those reserves are addressed properly. That's where I'm coming from around that. It's certainly staff has done exactly what staff should do. And as I say, I should have got the question. Council hasn't done what they should by getting the question off to you.
So perhaps, Deputy Mayor, if it's acceptable, we can simply direct staff at the next finance report presented to council, just to include a reserve balance for our water and wastewater pumping stations. We'll have that information then.
Absolutely acceptable.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, just to update, just to make sure that we remind council. So the pumping station up in Burnham Meadows, we have assumed that infrastructure. Everything else we haven't assumed there yet. So it's still under the control of the developer. So we own and operate and have assumed the pumping station because that was a condition for the for waste for the city of Peterborough, because it feeds that particular force main. So everything else up there is still a responsibility of the developer because it hasn't been assumed yet.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Last question or comment from Councillor Powers. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of, one is around, well, I'll start because it's the one that we're talking about already, is the pump itself. I'm curious, Craig, you referenced that Peterborough Utilities, I'm assuming you meant City of Peterborough, but they alerted us to the fact that the VFD was down. I'm just curious, do we have monitoring capabilities? Is there an expectation that we have to take ownership of monitoring those pumps moving forward, or are we relying on Peterborough Utilities or City of Peterborough to alert us to issues to those pumps?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Taylor, to Councillor Powers, no, that is they're the operating authority of that asset. So they have remote monitoring of those pumps and those VFDs, and we have no responsibility to oversee how they're functioning or how they're operating.
But we do have responsibility to replace them.
Correct.
We
Yes.
own the infrastructure, but we don't own the monitoring of it.
Correct. So they reached out to me to advise me of the problem to get approval to make that replacement.
Okay. And then final question is, or just really a comment, when the roads committee does meet regarding the boat launches and the parking issue and the winter control and emergency access, I'll just throw out a general comment, is that I would argue that the emergency access requirement is not a seasonal requirement. I'll say that. So if we have boats or trailers that are blocking the roadway, whether it's in the summer or the winter, we may want to employ the same measures. I'll just say that, if it's blocking emergency access.
Point made. Okay, council, thank you. Thank you very much, Craig, for the in-depth report. We certainly acknowledge the work that Public Works have put into keeping our township clear and the roads safe through this difficult winter. It's been a tough one. And I'd like you to extend our appreciation to staff for us if you can. We're not out of this yet. There's a lot of flooding now. But anyway, they've done a great job in difficult conditions, and we certainly appreciate that. I'd like a motion, please, to receive the Public Works Activity Report and refer the issue of boat launch concerns to the Roads Committee for some recommendations. Councillor Powers, Councillor Howie, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move down now to 13.2, which is an really information report on ORV use in county roads. Who's taking this one? Is this Greg, you or Craig? Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, this is an informational item with respect to the County of Peterborough giving consideration to the use of off-road vehicles on county roads. And obviously that does have, there are some considerations that fall within our township boundaries, County Road 21, County Road 2, 31, and so on. So the evaluation of the county roads with respect to ORV use is coming at the recommendation of the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee at the county level. They wanted to see an evaluation done on county roads in terms of feasibility to see where consideration could be given to ORV use on some of their county roads. And the process involves getting feedback from stakeholders, residents, and lower tier municipalities like ourselves and First Nations. So myself, Heather Scott, and CIO Bordis met with county staff and consultants to have a discussion around local conditions and ORV use. And obviously we don't have bylaws in place to prohibit ORV use in Otonabee-South Monaghan. So that is a discussion that they're having with all lower tier municipalities. And this is all being done in step with the draft Transportation Master Plan that the county is putting together. So it will give consideration, reciprocal consideration, I guess you could say, between the Transportation Master Plan and whatever is to come out of this ORV study. And ultimately the outcome would be that they would present out of this study a presentation, or they'll present a recommendation on strategy to the Transportation Master Plan Steering Committee and further County Council for approval. So I just wanted to advise council that that is happening.
Thank you, Craig. Just to be clear, there's no direction being sought. This is just received for information purposes, correct? Questions for information purposes? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'll make the motion to receive it with one comment. And certainly when it did come to County Council there with looking at the Transportation Master Plan, there seemed to be some dead ends instead of hooking these corridors up. So people drove into our municipality and got on a certain portion of it, and then it just completely stopped without any thought going into the connection. So I'm sure, Craig, that you have looked at that, but that is a concern. If people are coming in, you got to have a way in and out. You don't just pick a section of road and say, go at her.
Hey, if I'm not mistaken, Bonnie, you actually put forth a motion to receive the report?
Yes.
Did you not? Okay, do I have a seconder for that? So there's a motion on the floor. Councillor Allen has seconded it. So speak to the motion, please. Councillor Powers, go ahead.
Well, I think Mayor or Deputy Mayor Clark covered my comments, which was really, there were a number of comments when the presentation took place that I think council provided to the presenters at the time, and specifically around access. And so I think that, hopefully when they come back with their final report, we'll be able to see some of those concerns addressed.
Thank you. You're correct. And speaking to the motion, I'll say that this decision is far from being resolved yet. There are still a lot of unanswered questions. There's still a lot of concerns and considerations that will be made by County Council before any decisions are made. So again, this report was to receive for information. The motion is put on the floor to do just that. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. You'll notice that I'm trying to pick up the pace here a little bit. Moving down now to consent applications, and our planner has been waiting patiently. And I'll turn it over to Ken for consent application B115-21. And I believe I saw there's the applicant down there. Good evening, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Purpose of consent application B-115-21 is to create a vacant agricultural lot on the lands addressed 2015 Easton Line, which is located east of the intersection of River Road and David Fife Line. The proposed severed lot is approximately 38 hectares and has approximately 390 meters of frontage along David Fife Line. The proposed retained lands have a lot area of approximately 36 hectares and approximately 560 meters of frontage along Easton Line. The proposed retained lands currently have 2 single detached dwellings, a barn, accessory structures, and agricultural uses existing on them. The proposed severed lands are currently vacant and are used for agricultural purposes. Through a regulatory floodplain assessment that was submitted to support this application, it was determined that the existing entrance on David Fife Line, which is on the proposed severed lot, is within a floodplain, which would not allow for safe access in the event of a 1 in 100-year storm. So to resolve this issue, an easement connecting the severed parcel to the retained parcel, which would provide safe access in the event of a flood, has been proposed. As per section 3.1.2 of the provincial policy statement, this access makes the proposal consistent with the PPS, and it also conforms to all other applicable plans. That was it. And if there are any questions from council, Keith or I would be happy to answer them.
It'll be you, Ken. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the report. As you said, council, it's not often we get an application where the application conforms to the official plan, the severed parcel conforms to the zoning bylaw, and the retained parcel conforms to the zoning bylaw. That's rather unusual. So I'm looking for any questions or direction from council. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to make the condition, the approval subject to the 3 conditions that are listed. So I move the motion that we go forward with those 3 conditions.
Very good. Motion is to approve the application with the 3 conditions listed. Councillor Powers has seconded it. Any discussion? Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. That was easy, Ken. Thank you.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, the City of Peterborough draft official plan comments. Greg, I think this is yours, and we already have talked about it to some extent. So,
yep. Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is we spoke about it earlier, and it's just this is for information of council.
Any questions to Craig on it? We did talk about it several times actually this evening, so everybody's aware of the fact what's going on there, and the township is pursuing our concerns through the appropriate channels. So really, the motion would just be to receive this for information purposes. Councillor Howie has moved that motion, and Councillor Powers has seconded it. Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. We're going to move down now to bylaws. Could I get a motion, please, that bylaw 2022-13 and -14 be read a first time? I'm seeing Councillor Howie and Councillor Powers. All in favor? Carried. I'd like a motion, please, that, I'd like the clerk to review the bylaws.
Bylaw 2022-13 is your council confirming bylaw for February the 7th and the 10th. Bylaw 2022-14 is building is a cloud permit software agreement.
Any questions to the clerk on these bylaws? Seeing none, could I get a motion, please, that bylaws 2022-13 and 14 be read a second, third time, signed, sealed, and the corporate seal attached? Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Powers, all in favor? Done. Thank you. Several pieces of correspondence. The first one is the mandatory firefighter certification. This could have actually just gone under information. There's no direction being required, just for council's information. These letters have gone out. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor, go ahead. Can't hear you, Bonnie.
Hit the spacer bar and it's not working tonight. Sorry. I just wondered, since it is under this correspondence, it is the mayor and our fire chief that put this forward, if a motion from council in full support of this is in line.
I don't know. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, or Heather.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through the deputy mayor, the council did pass that resolution at the previous council meeting to do that, to direct the mayor to send the letters. So, you know, council's already undertaken that particular regard. We just wanted to make sure that we sort of brought it back so council was aware about how that direction from council was dealt.
Well, yes, I do realize that. I just thought since it was under correspondence, we either receive or support. So that's the only reason it's, you know.
Yeah, I think in this particular instance, the motion to receive would be sufficient because the
Okay,
letter's
I'll
gone
make
out.
the motion to receive.
Motion to receive from Deputy Mayor, Councillor Allen, seconded it. All in favor? That's received. Thank you. Dissolving the Interior Land Tribunal for the townships of Front and Young. What's council's pleasure on that one? Councillor Powers, go ahead.
Receive.
Sorry?
Sorry, receive.
Receive. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Clark. Conversation? Call the vote. All in favor? Received. Thank you. Township of Alnwick-Haldimand proclamation for Year of the Garden. What's council's pleasure on that one? Councillor Allen, go ahead.
I think I'd like to support that one.
Support it. I don't know how we couldn't. Seconder?
Exactly.
Seconder by Councillor Howie. All right, we're in full bloom tonight. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you missed the item from Selwyn Township.
No, it's last on my agenda.
Okay.
It's coming up.
Okay.
Gypsy moth, yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah.
There's a resolution there from Selwyn Township. What's council's decision on that one? And I can tell you just a little bit of background information. The Ministry of Natural Resources position is quite clear. They will not spray on private lands. Crown lands only, government lands only. So we don't have any crown lands in this township. Well, just put that out there. You can decide what you want to do with it. Councillor Allen, go ahead.
I would like to support it.
Supported by Councillor Allen. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howie. Any discussion on it? Call the vote. All in favor? That's supported. Okay, thank you. The information package. There's 4 items there. Is there anything any council member wants to pull out of them? I'll talk briefly about the recognition awards, but with the other 3, is there anything there? And the recognition awards could have gone under other matters. It's under information, and that's fine too. Simply, council, the deadline for submitting a nomination or recognition award is March 15th. Now, this particular year is an anomaly. I see a bunch of hands going up, and I'll try to get to you in a minute, but this particular year is an anomaly whereby they're still planning for an in-person recognition awards event. We already have a number of nominations in for various categories for 2020. And those awards are going to be given out at this year's event, plus any awards that come in for 2022. So we don't have any yet in 2022. It's getting late in the game now to chase some, but if a council member wants to pull a category from the list of options there, get your nomination into the county by November 15th, and they'll be considered for the 2022 awards. But we do have some representation from the township already from nominations that were submitted previously to this. Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, I was going to do the heritage preservations. Do you know if we have anybody for 20, Joe, in that?
It's too late for a 2020 nomination, but for 2022, it's not.
Oh, I just wondered if we had any.
We have no, I don't know of any, Bonnie, that we have for 2022 in any category. So you want heritage preservation? If you got
Yes.
somebody, perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Anybody else got anything? Look at the categories, council. If you got somebody you think is worthy of being recognized in that particular category, please get the nomination into the county by November 15th. That's all we need to say on that one. I'd like a motion, please, to receive the information package. Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Powers, all in favor? Received, thank you. Deputy Mayor, I believe you had a proposed motion under other matters. Bonnie, or try it again.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, sorry. That the OSM Council support and acknowledge International Women's Day on March the 8th in recognition of the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements that women have made not only in our community, but indeed the entire world.
Very good. And this, obviously, March the 8th is tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
So we don't have the opportunity to go through a notice of motion process or anything else. So this is so harmless. I think there's no problem allowing this one. Sorry, Heather.
I think if we could clarify through the clerk, if you have 100% support, it can be dealt with the same night, Heather.
Yeah, we're going to proceed with exactly that.
Okay. And okay, I'll make the motion and then I'll speak to it.
So the motion is to recognize, what exactly is it called, Bonnie?
Okay, that the OSM Council support and acknowledge International Women's Day celebrated on March the 8th, which is in recognition of the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements that women have made not only in our community, but indeed the entire world.
Is this an annual event always held on March 8th? So perhaps
It's
we should try to remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
put that in.
so Deputy Mayor has put forth that motion and Councillor Allen is going to second it. We've still got 4 or 5 minutes. Who wants to speak to the motion?
I'm just wondering, in supporting that, it's very short notice, if that can be put on our community boards. Is it too late to acknowledge that?
Can something be put up in their digital signboard, Greg, tomorrow acknowledging this proclamation?
We will try. And
Okay.
we'll make an attempt and we'll do the best we can.
And thank you. That's all that can be done. I appreciate that.
Anybody else want to speak to the motion? I wasn't sure if Councillor Allen had his hand up. Mark, did you want to speak to it, or?
Well, I was happy to support it. I mean, I have a household of myself, 4 very strong women, so I'm quite happy to support that motion.
You wouldn't get away with anything else, Mark.
Discretion, as they say, is a better part of valor. Okay, all in favor, call the vote. That's unanimous support. Thank you very much. Do we have anything else, Heather? 8:25. We made it. Thanks, Council. I appreciate it. Thanks for the cooperation tonight. Good meeting. Great discussion on some very important topics. Motion to adjourn. Howie and Powers, we're all in favor. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.